Welcome to South Florida's Real Estate Rundown. This is your host, LarryG, along with my colleagues, Tom O'Loughlin and Michael Oretsky. We're here because podcasting has become just legendary across all industries. We wanted to make sure to get our message out to our clients. We're not here to make other brokers' businesses more efficient and better and more well run, like the content I used to put out. So we're going to focus on speaking to our clients. We're going to add as much value to them as possible. And we're just going to do a quick rundown on leasing, sales, trends in the market, and the kind of things that we talk about, around the lunch table and put it out for the market to see. It'll also help, I think, cement our brand as one of the top teams in South Florida. We've been around, I think, Tom, you've been at CB for now 15 years. Is that right?
18
years. Holy crap. 18 years. I've been there about 13 years. And Mike, you've been there about 7 years. So we've got a lot of experience between all of us. I calculated we've done well over 1,500 transactions over that time frame for many, many billions of dollars. So there's a lot of experience here. And we wanted to just put it in a cool format for our clients, all over the world to be able to digest at their leisure. You don't have to have lunch with us. You don't have to call us. We're just going to give you all the stuff that's going on. And obviously, if something strikes your fancy and you'd like to dive deeper, we'd love to talk to you about that. So you can reach out. So kicking it off, I'd love to start with leasing. That's what everyone's talking about. That's what everyone's thinking about, whether you're on the capital market side or you're a tenant or you're an owner just managing your properties. You want to know what's going on with leasing because there's been a lot of ebb and flow over the last couple of years. So we'll start with Tom. And Tom, kicking it off with you, why don't you give us a brief update on the leasing market and what you're seeing with absorption and lease rates and sort of where things are falling out right now?
Yeah, overall, take it from a big picture to more of a micro level. South Florida is performing very well. We get on a lot of national calls, and there's a lot worse markets to be in than South Florida. Now, everybody in South Florida has had to make an adjustment. We were coming off the COVID high in the velocity of leasing where deals were literally just falling all over the place to, kind of a back to basics approach. All the markets have settled down and the absorption and tenant activity has probably gone back to more of a pre-COVID type pace, and especially probably over the last 6-12 months, it might have even slowed a little bit further than a normal pace. So it's forcing landlords and tenants to really rethink their space needs, which I think is impacting velocity and absorption. I mean, overall, South Florida, whatever, however you want to judge it, whatever information source you use, the vacancy rate in Broward is 4.5, 4.6. Dade, it's probably, 5.5 going to 6, so about 100, 150 basis points higher. Overall, that's really healthy. You start looking at vacancy rates in other markets, they would trade us blindly to be in mid-single digits. And that's probably a healthy range. We could use a little kick in the butt on absorption. It's been kind of uneven, and I think that's also trying to work through a lot of, we have a little hangover from we all went out and built probably a little too much, a little too quickly. So there's a lot of projects that are in motion on that. But, overall, all things considered, South Florida's in a great place. I think everybody over the last probably 90 days, it's been a long, hot summer, and everybody is, all in over the next 4 months to make a hard run to the end of the year. And I think that's both landlords, brokers, and tenants. I think everybody, if you're a tenant right now, sounds like a good time to go out and try to make a deal before things tighten back up because construction slowed. If you're a landlord, the vacancy's been itching, it's been kind of scratching at you for a while, so you're ready to make a deal. And you put a broker in the middle of those two trends, I think you're going to see a lot of action here over the next 120 days as we run out of 25.
Yeah, what about lease rates? Where are lease rates falling out for, A and B product? Call it just in a general range, 15 to 30, 40,000 feet. One
of the things that happened when we came out over the last couple of months or a couple of years is we all lost, kind of sight of the different lease rates that are attached to Class A, Class B, and Class C. We would just take whatever deal was most recently done, regardless of what type of building it was, and just add 25, 50 cents, $1, whatever the market would bear.
Those were the days.
Yeah. And, it's kind of gone back to the basics. Like if you have a good property with good access in a well-located submarket, you should earn a premium versus a market in a tertiary market way out, away from the highway, or with crappy loading, or with low clear height, no fire sprinklers, yada, yada, yada. But like there should be a delta in those lease rates. And, there's some pain reestablishing those, because the people who own, or the landlords that own or run those lesser properties are saying, like, why did that property get more than what I'm getting? And it's kind of, you got to relearn that process. But I would say overall, as a rule of thumb, I would say South Florida is probably 10% off the COVID peaks now, and that's across all product types. I don't know if we should have ever been at the COVID peaks. I think we all kind of maybe had a little bubble at the very end there. But I would say, we've seemed to have stabilized, and landlords are starting to toe the line, and deal activity starting to occur. But I'd say overall it's probably like 10%. I don't know what you guys think, but from peak?
Yeah, but when you look at that 10%, peak was 2 years ago. Our operating expenses have jumped $1 or $2 from then. So these tenants are swallowing realistically above peak prices. Today we're probably in the 30 to 50 in Broward. You're 15 to 16.50 net. Again, back then you're looking at a $4 OPEX. Today that's $5.50 to $6.50. So the tenants don't care what we call it, unfortunately. They're looking at the gross number, what their monthly cost is. So on a gross basis, we're pretty much at peak or probably just above.
Great point.
So
excellent point. For those of you who don't know Mike, he sounds like a broken record to us, because he's been talking about this for 2 years, and he was early on recognizing that operating expenses were going to add pressure on base rents going up, and that's exactly what happened. So to your point, we're getting in some cases the highest rents we've ever seen in our careers, but it's just not on the base rent, it's on the gross.
Yeah, I mean, we're settling out to 21 to 23 gross across all size ranges.
It's unbelievable.
Which, if we said that 5 years ago, we'd all be going outside and celebrating that.
Wild.
So, the tenants, they're swallowing it, and the deals getting done are done in that size range or in that rate. So
excellent point. I can't have a conversation without Mike without him bringing up gross rents. So I'll keep it with Mike. Tom talked about leasing demand and a lot of the deals that are occurring or are not occurring. Where is the tenant demand coming from? What tenants are in the market? What industries are in the market? And let's dive into where tenants are trying to be and what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So I mean, if you look at a comp sheet, we have pretty much a wide array of tenants in every industry. We're really driven by the home related tenants, so marble, bathroom, HVAC guys, a lot of service oriented tenants. We've seen a huge increase in cruise and airline tenants from their industries, and they're obviously growing down here. Some pretty good 3PL activity, nothing like the Northeast. But, we've talked about this for a while, all year. The activity reports were very long, and the tours were, everyone had a lot of tours, but it was just slow to put pen to paper. And the trend we've been seeing recently now that, school's back and everyone's back in their chair, that the tour volume has even increased from there. And it sounds like Tom said, the tenants are ready to go. They have to do something by the end of the year. The urgency is back. We're hoping the LOIs have gone through the roof in the past week or two. So we're hoping that translates to more deals done and more positive absorption here.
Yeah, you touched on it real quick. Let's dive deeper into that. Tenants are taking longer than ever to make decisions. It feels like the ultimate pain is the only way I could really describe it. And it's like a national issue. So let's touch on that for a second. What do you think is driving the lag in tenants making decisions? And do you think that this trend will reverse at some point, or do you think we're going to be stuck with this for a while?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question and something we talk a lot about. The last 2 years, these tenants have always had a crutch. I mean, whether it was the election, it was interest rates, now we had tariffs this year. So whether these tenants were affected directly or not, there was a lot of uncertainty for them that they had to work through. I don't think it's here to stay, and this is the first time in a couple of years that we've seen a true, call it summer slowdown, where every deal we were working on, someone was out of town, whether it be the attorney, the CEO, the C-suite, someone local that had to green light the decision, someone was out. So, and that's where we've seen that change in the last 2 weeks, where now that all the kids are back in school and it seems that those vacations are finally over, that everyone's focused, the attorneys are turning comments quicker, the CEOs are making decisions quicker. So I don't think that's a trend here to stay. It'll be seen, the next quarter or two, if that's true to the case. But, now that we're back and things are going and these guys need to make a decision here, we're hoping that translates, like I said, to deals done.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the whole tariff thing is in the rearview mirror. Everyone's figured that out. It just kind of is what it is at this point, and people are starting to make decisions. You're not gonna not grow your business and take on additional contracts and revenue just because something that happened is in the past and you can't change it. It's just your reality now. So you're gonna keep growing your business. You're just gonna have to factor that in moving forward.
Right, and I think that's where the delay initially was. Is no one knew.
Right.
It was the question mark of what the percentage was going to be. So now these guys know. Like we just did a deal with an impact window and door guy, and wherever he got his product from, it was an 8% increase. And he's like, yeah, we didn't miss a beat. We threw it right through, and it's business as usual, and they expanded. We're doing a deal right now, institutional landlord, institutional national tenant. It's a renewal. They never entered the market. It was always a renewal. We started this conversation in February. We're sitting here today and about to be September, and we just got to amendment, really. Wow. So, I mean, just a true testament of just the delays that we've seen. And again, this is not a tenant that's in the market or really looking to move. It's just been slow at a corporate level.
Right.
And, we've had, that's a trend that we've seen across our portfolio and others. So. Yeah.
And I'll just throw this out there to all the clients that are listening to this. And we're making this for you guys. We're not really interested in other brokers. We're not here to sell courses or anything like that. We don't care if we get 50 views as long as it's our clients that are the viewers. I will say that the brokers that you have on your projects have never been more important because of all these delays. You've got to ride these tenants. You can't be like part-time, like in and out, taking Fridays off. Like you need young, hungry, aggressive teams who are really in the know, who are in the thick of things, and who are working really hard. Because if you drop it for a week or two and you're not following up with these tenants, it just delays things even longer. And the longer things take, right? You got to short circuit it as much as humanly possible by putting pressure on people and pushing and bringing other tenants to the properties and creating that kind of demand as much as you can. Obviously, you can't create the market, but I think that's something that we do really well. You guys are both super organized on the leasing side. You're on top of all your crap, and it's been really impressive to watch over the years how you two have just really worked amazingly together. And because of it, I think the portfolio has grown a lot. And you could tell the clients trust us and know that we're working hard and we're not, out boating on a Friday or something like that, which I see all the time. It drives me crazy. So real quick, just to kind of cut off on the leasing side, based on everything we just discussed, Tom, how do you think tenants' strategies have changed over the last, call it 6-12 months? Like, what are the tenants thinking, and what does that mean for us?
I think originally the deals and the need for space was always controlled by the C-suite. It was always the CFO, the CEO, the president, the controller. It was always the top brass that made leasing decisions. COVID came around, and all of a sudden those decisions, the supply chains got so crazy, all those decisions went down to the local manager needed an additional bay, the supply chain guy was calling the shots, and that's done another 180 back to the C-suite. So it's back to CFOs, the presidents, bring it to the boardroom, prove it to me again, you need this space. Prove it to me again, you need this space, and you better prove it to me really, really, really good that you need an expansion space because your business unit isn't supporting what you currently have.
I hate hearing that. So
and we still see a lot of local cowboys, local managers, local division guys running out, getting the market all lit up, saying I'm going to take 75,000 square feet. The deal goes quiet for 2 or 3 months. The guy comes back and says, yeah, I'm renewing in 45,000. Why? I couldn't prove out that I needed more space. And the CFO said, I could have told you that 3 months ago, but you didn't listen. So I think that, you have to have a financial justification for anything other than just renew in place. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to go take down a new building, because you got to think about when you move all the, the value of all the racking and the move and the disruption and, prove it to me. So I think we're in that state where it's going to go back to the C-suite, and for the next couple of years, there's going to be a hard business case that needs to get proven out for any movement with regards to renewals, less space, more space, all that type of stuff. But, overall, the good news is South Florida is still unique, huge amount of wealth. The migration's probably, from what we're hearing from our clients, the migration to South Florida has slowed. There's not a quadrillion people moving here every day. There's still people moving to Florida. I'd probably say now it's probably quality over quantity here in South Florida. We're done getting just the masses. Now we're just getting the exuberantly wealthy people, which probably works out better for our business in the long run, because when the uber wealthy move down here, They immediately remodel whatever they bought. They tear it down. They build it again. Yep. They buy planes. They buy boats. They buy multiple cars. And all those things need to go through warehouses or the repair of them or the refitting of them and that type of stuff. So I think long term, even as there's a return to office and the migration from the Northeast has slowed, I think South Florida's still got a ton of stuff going for it. You talk to some of the other people, and like the office market has lit up, and that's going well. You know, every one of our places we all do retail, it's crowded, it's busy. You know, even this summer, you go to like the local restaurants, they're packed, even on like a Tuesday and Wednesday.
Can't get a reservation.
Yeah, and then we're not even in season. Wait till this fires back up again. And I think just, you know, like people are pro South Florida, pro Florida. So I think as long as that continues, South Florida industrial market should keep rocking and rolling. And we're still seeing a bunch of cranes. Downtown Fort Lauderdale, downtown West Palm, downtown Miami, seeing the cranes. Then all of our neighborhoods, we were talking about the other day at lunch, everybody's neighborhood's got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 spec houses going up. They're tearing down the small ones. And all the stuff going into those houses comes through all of our, you know, clients' warehouses. So I think, you know, I'd be all in over the next couple of quarters and months on what we're going to do. I think, like I said earlier, we got a little bit of inventory to work through. But like I know in Broward, like we need 3 or 4 deals, not necessarily in our buildings, but just generically in a couple different buildings. Yep. And the landlords are all going to look at each other, and the brokers that work those landlord properties are going to say, rent growth, let's go, strap on, here we go again. Yeah. And then, you know, I think in Dade County, same thing. They might have a little more inventory to work through, but, you know, they're a handful of projects away from being like, let's turn this back on, just because, you know, once we work through this amount of product we currently have on the table, the next batch, you know, it's all being built on $2.5–3 million an acre dirt. The cost of construction has not come down. If you talk to any of the big GCs in town, you talk to any of the developers, and the rents that they have to get to develop are high teens net. Yeah. So, and trust me, I've never met a developer who doesn't want to continue to develop. So I think, you know, from here on out, it's just going to get more expensive and more complex to do this stuff, which will keep the prices high and the rent growing.
Right, so tenants, do your deals now before it's too late, because rents are about to go up. It sounds like about 20% or 15% in the next year.
If you talk to the landlords and you talk to the tenants, it's actually a unique point in time where you can actually go cut yourself a pretty good deal that I would say the deal you're going to go out and cut today is most likely not going to be there in 12 months.
Right, and that's been the case like in all of history of South Florida, other than, you know, giant recessions and stuff like that.
Well, and you know, to Tom's point, that just goes to prove that we're just a home-related market and a service-related market. So when these rich individuals move down and they're consuming, that's how our tenants expand. That's who they're servicing. And just a real-world example of what he mentioned about the C-suite and how that works is, you know, again, institutional landlord, Class A building. We agreed with the local team on basically expanding them double. We had a lease out, lease rate, everything was agreed to. Went up to the CEO for approval. They did all the reports, and the CEO came back like, yeah, we'll expand, not at that number. So, you know, it's adding to the deal timeline, but, you know, things are getting done. Yeah. And I agree 100% with Tom that we're making the turn.
Yeah, last time I checked, 70% of GDP was consumer spending. So, and here it's like 90%
more
for our little micro market.
Yeah, and one of the unique things is, like, we haven't really lost any tenants, like, in the market. Like, if you were, like, now would be the time if you made widgets in South Florida and you said it's just too expensive to be down there. Like, we've lost single-digit type tenants, like, you know, a handful maybe for reasons, you know, who knows what. But there hasn't been a trend line where they're like, oh, my God, we're just losing tenants to XYZ marketplace in Georgia, Alabama, North or South Carolina. Right. Like, I think the quality of life, the people who own businesses want to be here. Their families are here. It's dynamic. And, yeah, you can go do it cheaper, but, like, people aren't willing to move.
Well, true, and their customer base is here. Yeah. So, I mean, these guys aren't sitting in Fort Lauderdale or Pompano and sending product up to Texas and New Jersey. I mean, they're sitting here and they're servicing the Tri-County. Yeah. So, you know, we've had maybe I can count on one hand how many tenants told us, like, hey, I'm going to move this thing up north. Don't worry about what I do, and I'll see you later. But everyone else, they're here because they have to be.
Yeah, it's only a few key niche manufacturers that really relocated to, like, Kentucky or somewhere weird, or went to some 3PL and, you know, Nowheresville, whatever. All right, Great. That's a great recap on leasing, guys. Thank you so much. Let's shift over to sales real quick, and I'll just keep this short, and you guys can chime in as you like, obviously. In terms of what's keeping the market pretty busy, other than I'm going to stay away from the whole institutional capital market stuff because it's just not my world. But when it comes to sales, like on the private capital side, we're seeing a lot of owner-user sales. A lot of, either leased with upcoming vacancy or vacant buildings trading, or even selling a bunch of land, like smaller pieces of land, 5 acres and under. And it seems like there's a clearing price for everything. It's when people are really not serious about selling that things tend to sit. And if those folks want it to sit because it's income producing or their businesses in there, that's perfectly fine. I totally understand that. But in terms of like clearing property, it seems like on the owner user side for any kind of a decent building, you're like every bit of $225 a foot to $350 a foot on the high end, at least in Broward and Dade and Doral. It can get a little bit higher sometimes. But that, that's probably where it's been for a while. I don't think it's really come backwards just because there's nothing available to sell. And when a decent building comes up, there's multiple offers on it. And there's a lot of really successful companies down here that realize now, even if they have to pay a little bit more to own, you can still get SBA financing from 90%. Your interest rate's going to be blended around 6%. And why would I pay, somewhere close to the amount of rent that my mortgage would cost? So it makes a lot of sense to be buying, and that's what it seems like everyone that's liquid and not loaded with debt in the user space, in the end user space, is focused on buying. We're seeing that a lot, and we're actually losing some tenants that would be leasing to purchasing, and whether it's off market or on market or whatever. And then in terms of like multi-tenant industrial sales, on the low end of the spectrum, you're looking at $160 a foot to $225 a foot. That's where it kind of shakes out with like, call it 16 to 18 net rents. That's where things sort of make sense. I know a lot of people want 250 and more. I don't see that happening unless it's like some kind of a unique portfolio or something special. And then developers right now that are trying to build into the market at scale, they're really trying to solve for a 6 or 6.5% yield on cost. And that's where the whole market is. And it's so competitive down here. There's so little land. You guys know. I mean, we did an analysis a couple years ago for the institutional guys. And what was it? There was like 200 acres of industrial land left in Broward. That was like 3-4 years ago we did that analysis. We should probably do that again. In Dade, there was a lot more, but most of it was under the water and like under muck and all kinds of stuff. So, but in Broward, there's no land left. There's like 3 people who own land in Broward who haven't sold to an institution, and everyone's chasing them. And every time, someone gets to their price, they just up the price per acre $500,000. So like it went from like, 1.5 to 2 to 2.5 to 3 now. And like nobody's paying 3 right now, unfortunately.
Well, if you think about it, at least on the owner user sales, as rent goes up, which it will, we're out of land and we're going to tighten up here pretty quickly. The user sale price will go up. Yeah. Because they're like you said, they're comparing their rent to what their mortgage would be on cost. So a lot of people looking, there's not a ton of inventory out there for it. So there's a high demand if a good building becomes available. Yeah. But I feel like that's tied directly into the correlation to the rents.
Yeah. And, one of the things that we talked about earlier that, we good to get your opinion on this, Larry, is that honestly, I thought I'd see a bigger surge of owner users coming out of the market now that Trump passed his big, beautiful bill with the accelerated depreciation.
Yep.
Like I thought like people were going to be like running out and like knocking down our doors to buy anything in sight that you could take that accelerated depreciation on plant, equipment. I don't know what the other things are exactly, all that. But I thought like, wow, what a great opportunity for owner users to come buy a building and just immediately turn around and depreciate the bejesus out of it and do it. But maybe that's just a lack of inventory, or have you seen any of those guys come out?
No, you're 100% right. They are. Everyone wants to buy. All their accountants are screaming at them to go buy a building and buy a whole bunch of new machinery. There is no inventory. There is nothing of any quality for sale. There's a lot of crap out there that's like 13, 14 foot clear that you could buy, in the 200, 225 a foot range, all over South Florida, not any specific market. And that just doesn't work for a lot of people who are trying to rack, 3 or 4 high. It's not going to work. You need 18 foot clear, especially with the way the fire departments have been treating everyone. They've been really strict lately. So yeah, to find an 18-foot clear building, to find a 20-foot, name one building for sale that you know of anywhere in Broward that's 20-foot clear or higher.
Well, Tom and I just saw this. We had a tenant, again, in one of our institutional parks, 30 to 50.
Jay's the only one, sorry.
30 to 50,000 square feet. And he's like, I'm done renting. I'm going to go buy a building. So he bought whatever he could find. I think it was down in Hialeah or wherever it was. And he got a price to what it would cost to build it out to where his business can be functional. And he said, he called us basically 2 weeks later and said, hey, get me a proposal. I'll figure it out. I'm staying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to your point, yeah, there's buildings for sale, but they're not at institutional quality where these guys can walk in and operate day one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, until that shifts a little bit, I think a lot of these guys are going to continue to rent.
Yeah, I mean, because, Mike, you bring up a good point. It's like the owner-user world doesn't understand that it costs $225 a foot to build out office inside of a warehouse. So they're
just the office, just to be clear.
So like when they go like buy a building and they talk to their cousin's brother, sister's girlfriend's friend who's the GC that built their kitchen, and he's like, yeah, I'll retrofit that for you. And then they actually go hire an architect and get the plans to retrofit the building. Exactly. A huge oops. Like, wow, I bought this $3, $4, $5 million building. I didn't realize it was going to cost me $3, $4, $5 million to make it right.
At least.
And take, 6 to 12, 18 months of my life, because like we see landlords that do this professionally, that have project management teams and do it for a living, and it still takes 5, 6, 7, 8 months, and they're not getting any great pricing either. Like it's still $200+ a foot. Demising walls are $400 and change. AC is like $12, $10 to $12 a foot to put into these buildings. So I mean, I think a lot of it also is the capital that, like, it's shocking how much capital is required to make the buildings like Class A.
Yeah, for perspective, an AC costing $12 a foot, that's the price of a new roof. Just so everyone's clear, it's astronomically high. Anyway. So that's a quick little recap there on sales. I would love to jump to trends with you guys and talk about some trends that you're seeing. Why don't you guys highlight one or two trends that you're monitoring that you think could be impactful here moving forward over the next 6 to 12 months, because that's really the time horizon that I care about at least. Tom, why don't I start with you? What do you think is going to be happening over the 6 to 12 months?
I'm seeing a lot of movement from landlords on TI allowances. For a while there, it was very strict about what you could apply it towards, how quickly you had to use it, what it was going for. It had to be pre-approved. I'm seeing landlords now, to try to win deals because it's gotten so competitive, they're willing to allow certain portions of it to be credited towards rent. They're letting people go out of scope and letting them use it towards moving allowances and soft costs and hard costs and equipment, quote unquote. Before it was always, this money has to go into my building. It has to be a building improvement. And the landlords have, kind of made that scope really wide, and people are spending TI money on stuff that I didn't think would get approved, and it's getting approved because, the landlords are saying, look, it's a part of the deal. It's a cost of doing this deal. I got to win this tenant. I want to do this deal. And if it comes, I'm not winning and losing it based on what I'm going to let this tenant improvement allowance be put towards. So a lot of the aggressive landlords are, putting line items in there for moving allowances that could be considered a quote unquote type of TI. They're letting the tenants, more than 12 months. A lot of the times I've seen some 24-month terms on how long they can use the TI allowance, just because it's crazy. Like we just talked about with permitting and stuff like this, you can't spend it fast enough, and they might not need it right away. They want to do one project after another. So they're letting,
it used to be 12 months.
Yeah. They're letting that timeline slip, or grow a little bit. But I think we'll continue to see a lot of financial engineering revolving around tenant improvements over the next couple of months, just because once the deal gets struck, once the TI money's spent, it's kind of an afterthought, because then if the property ever goes to like the capital markets to be sold, no one really remembers the TIs of the last deal or what they had to do with it. It's just kind of what's the rate, how much terms left, and what are the escalations.
That's great. Great insight. Mike, same question to you. What trends are you watching over the next 6 to 12 months that would impact our clients? Yeah,
I mean, what we've seen, which I think we're going to continue to see, is tenants are in the market a lot earlier than they used to be. So, I mean, before, if you were anything more than 6 months out of where you were looking to commence, a landlord wouldn't even talk to you. So, I mean, they're out a year plus looking at space, and landlords, like Tom said, are getting creative around commencing that, whether it be early access execution, free rent inside, free rent outside. They're working around that commencement date. And on the same flip side, we're talking to tenants to renew a lot earlier, a year and a half plus, to lock these guys in and not deal with the vacancy that some of the landlords have gone through in the past 12 to 18 months. So I think it's something that's going to continue. It's something we're going to have to get creative around going forward. I think it's just something to watch.
Yeah, a lot of our very smart owners are, both know themselves and are listening to us, and they're out way in advance of expirations. And I think that's something that's here to stay probably.
Well, and two, now we're starting to see the renewals for the first time coming off the COVID rents. So, I mean, we're seeing guys expiring mid to high teens. So it's making that renewal conversation a lot easier. But, there are landlords out there who have had, a longer term vacancy that will throw call it a below market deal at them. So the landlords are getting in front of. We are seeing a slight flight to quality for those groups who are expiring off that type of rate in a, call it a B or B plus building. Because like Thompson, like we mentioned in the beginning of this show, you can get a good deal on a nice building today. So we are seeing a flight to quality. Again, I think that'll continue, but it'll be a sight to see for the rest of the year.
That's great. So it sounds like the higher quality buildings will probably win in this environment, and also long term, especially if we start to see rent growth sometime around next year this time.
Yeah, 100%.
Should be interesting. All right, so we'll just try and keep this really brief, guys. What about something that you're working on, or something that you've been using lately that you think is interesting, or something you read or a show you watch or something like that? Something personal. Why don't you go first, Mike?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to use AI.
You and everyone else.
No, I mean, funny enough, we were talking on our way in here. It's like, yeah, we have all these.
Tell me how to use you.
Yeah, we have all these AI tools, and I'm trying to obviously utilize that for our business. And we're getting creative in a lot of ways on reporting and tracking and honestly reports for our owners. But I mean, there's just, I can't even comprehend how much you can do. So it's we're just putting a lot of time into that.
A lot of time, money, and energy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's going to continue. We're going
to leverage labor for we're going to leverage technology for our clients.
Absolutely.
Awesome. What about you?
I'd probably say that this summer, I've really gotten into listening to podcasts. You guys.
That's why we're here. This was his idea, by the way.
No, but I'm just it just seems to be a very convenient format for me to get information at. Whether I'm walking my dog, I'm driving to work, I'm at the gym for an hour. It just seems to be the perfect thing to fit into that time block I'm not just listening to real estate podcasts. God, the amount of supplements I've bought and now thrown away would make your head spin. Every time I listen to a podcast, someone tells me I got to take an oil or do a rub or do something, and I bought it all, and I just end up throwing it away 2 weeks later, but that's beside the point. But no, I'm listening to all types of, whether it's financial, real estate, residential real estate, health, all this type of stuff, and it just seems to be and I'm talking to my peer set of friends, both personally and professionally, and everybody is just gone berserk on podcasts. It's just every text chain I'm on, it's like, did you listen to this one? Did you listen to this one? So I think that forum's probably, like you said, that's why we're here, is definitely one that is just explosive right now.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's great. The only reason we're here doing this is because it was Tom's idea, just for the record. And I think he's right. Podcasting it has been big. It's getting bigger, and people are doing incredible things as offshoots of. And for us, nothing's more important than our clients. We didn't want to come here to sell anything. We're just here to provide the best possible value and information for our clients. Everyone else, no offense, I don't really care. But we're excited to be doing this, and I think this is going to be great. And it's a great medium, so we can communicate with everyone at once, and we can chop it up, and we're going to do reels and all kinds of fun stuff with it. So this has been fantastic. Thank you guys for doing this. We will get better as we go forward. Yeah. We will get sharper, cleaner. My intros will get better. And I just want to say, if you wouldn't mind, liking and subscribing and commenting below. And if you are just a troll in the background, there's a lot of you out there, you want to send us a note personally to give us some encouragement to keep going, that would be very much appreciated. And thank you for joining us. And thank you to our clients for trusting us with all this real estate. It's still mind-boggling. We so much appreciate it. You have no idea.
One last thing, we're going to try to publish this once a month, right?
Yes.
That's our goal. We're going to give it a shot. We're going to give it the old college try once a month. It'll all be focused on South Florida, primarily industrial real estate, but we will get into iOS. We will get into private client sales.
Yep.
We will get into land. And once we get really good, next episode or two, we're going to start coming out to South Florida with special guests.
That's right. So if you have any ideas for guests, definitely drop a comment or shoot us a text, and we'd love to start putting together a guest list.
Or if you want to be one.
And you have to be interesting, because we're super boring. So we need someone who's very boisterous. We need a good middler. That's it. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Peace.